It's exciting to be here with you. I'm Ben Harrell, and I'm here to talk about the U.S. as one of our priorities. The U.S. is a little different than the other ones. It's not a product or a project. It's a place. It's an important place. We know we're here, but something we've focused on quite a bit over the past several years. Something you've heard Glenn talk about this morning, but also in earnings calls and almost anywhere you see Glenn talk. There's a lot of things that we've done to help progress in the U.S. Brand awareness, Glenn mentioned this morning, brand awareness for Booking.com in the U.S. was up 50%. This top of mind awareness in the second half of last year versus the year before. It's an incredible increase that we've been able to see in a relatively short period of time. Of course, just being better known isn't the whole game. We've got to be making improvements, and we've made a lot of product improvements, both on the traveler side as well as on the partner side. You just heard Eric talk a lot about some of the improvements we've made in short-term rentals, and there's a lot there. Insurance, damage waiver, request to book, but also we've made improvements on other areas. We've made incredible improvements in fintech and payments. You're going to hear about those in just a second, but lots of improvements, and then many smaller improvements that are also quite impactful when you add them together, again, both for travelers as well as partners. A year ago at Click, we publicly launched our sponsored ads product, and that is at a pretty good scale at this point. We've made a lot of changes and improvements to the product over the last year based on feedback from you, our partners, and we're really happy with how that product has progressed, and we continue to make it even better. And the flights product, which again you heard about, is scaling nicely. That business for Booking.com in the US has doubled over the last year. So we are excited to see continued growth in all of these products. It's paying off. Glenn talked about share a little bit this morning. Skift made it very clear with their headline, Booking Holdings makes good on long-standing goal to take US market share. We're happy with the progress that we see. And I'm sure many of you are happy with what you're seeing coming from us to your hotels, to your short-term rentals. There's progress that we've made domestically within the US, but also I know many of you look to us to bring in international demand. That is still something we're working on and something we're seeing good progress on. We'll show just a couple numbers here. You don't see these numbers very often. There's lots of pictures being taken right now. Europeans to the US in the fourth quarter grew at more than 100% versus Europeans coming to the US through Booking.com the year before. And it's not just one country. When you look across Europe, really all the major markets had incredible growth in Q4 versus the year before. We're excited to bring more travelers into the US to stay at your properties. And when they come, they tend to stay longer and spend more. You heard a similar refrain from Amy talking about high-value travelers. It's true. When customers come from Europe into the US, they spend 90% more on their stay than domestic US travelers. All of this is to say we're seeing good progress and we're happy with what we're seeing domestically. And we're also continuing to bring in customers to the US so that they can stay at your properties and enjoy that experience. Obviously, we are trying to do our best to improve the situation for travelers, but also partners. So as we look at our focus this year, there's improvements in connectivity. We know that not all partners, especially in the US, are connected directly to our extranet. So we're talking more and more about how we can make connected partners be able to improve what they're seeing and what they can do with Booking.com. Connected partners are just so important here. We've made incredible improvements in payments. If you're not on payments, we've gotten increasingly good feedback about what we've implemented. We continue to make changes to make it even better. So it will continue to get better and better, but incredible improvements there. Flexibility. We've heard you want us to be flexible as we ask you to be flexible. Questions like, can we participate in Genius with a room upgrade without the Genius discount? These are things historically we were not willing to do, but things that now we're being more flexible on. Ad formats and regions, I talked about sponsored ads. That's something that we're pushing and has good scale in the US. And we've expanded recently outside of the US. So we launched in Europe, we've launched in LATAM, other geo launches coming later this year. Data sharing. I've heard maybe a few people want us to share more data. Is that, I don't know if have you heard that? Yeah, we've heard that. we are responding. So there's a lot that we're doing to try to share more data. We will be sharing more data. So that is something that is definitely a priority for us this year. On the traveler side, there's also a lot of things that we're doing. I talked a lot about what we're doing to improve domestic awareness. Glenn mentioned a Super Bowl ad, a 2-minute ad in the Oscars. These things are paying off. We're seeing people know and recognize and appreciate the Booking brand more than we ever have in the past. The improvements on payments have been impressive. Greater rewards. Amy talked about high-value travelers and how we're trying to treat them. We're making progress in flights and rental cars. I talked about flight growth, which is just an impressive number. And vacation rentals, you just heard Eric talk about all we're doing here, and that's global, but there's a lot of focus in the US market and how we can do it better here for travelers as well as partners. Ultimately for you, you're trying to make the most of the opportunities you have with Booking.com. So I'll call out in my last minute, that's good. Call out in my last minute a few things that you can do to focus on bringing both international travelers to your properties as well as domestic travelers to your properties. Targeted rates are so helpful. We have country rates. I would strongly encourage you to look at that if you really care about international demand. Breakfast included rates, that sounds like a funny thing. When people are traveling from Europe and from other countries into the US, having a breakfast included rate matters. So I'll just call that out as one thing. This is something your account managers will surely be telling you, but it's true. This is a data-driven insight. Sponsored ads, now that we're launching in more and more countries, you're able to go into sponsored ads and target travelers coming from other countries. Don't miss out on that opportunity. If you want to focus on domestic demand or add additional domestic demand, flexible, be flexible, right? There's flexible rates that you can do. Mobile rates, state rates, all these things are helpful. Bundled rates, if you can add more to a room, it's helpful. And sponsored ads, obviously always a good way to target additional occupancy needs. Thank you.